Mabuhay, Kamustika, welcome. How are you? This is Bob from Love Beyond the Sea. Benefits to the single life. My unpopular opinion. I am a marriage supporter who wants to make marriage great again. Do I think there isn't anything good about being single? I will link an article from psychologytoday.com called 17 Benefits of the Single Life. The special strengths of single people and the meaningfulness of single life. And then I will reply to that. I'll be real honest with you. I already knew that MGTOW, men going their own way, was leading people into a lifetime of sorrow and loneliness. But after spending 2 hours leaving comments one night on a video called Why It's Better to Be Single 4 Reasons, and I will link that for you, I reckon this guy is a stoic. I wondered if things are worse than I thought they were. Because that video has almost 300,000 views. It's only a month old. About 15,000 likes. This man's channel has 920 plus thousand subscribers. And I will link an article for that. Subscribe to Love Beyond the Sea for the other side to this, that marriage is best for most people. I also noticed on someone else's channel, on stoicism, there was a video on semen retention. No thanks. Another one was called How to Be Alone. Well, I was alone for 53 years already before getting married. Maybe I should have written a book on that. I certainly wasn't content to be alone and not have sex, yet apparently there is a growing movement of people who like to not have sex. Let's run through this article now. I'll try to be quick. They start by saying single people are too often stereotyped and stigmatized. They are pitied while married people are celebrated. Yet the single life can be tremendously meaningful and fulfilling. It is time for a more accurate research-based portrayal of single people and single life, one that recognizes the real strengths and resilience of people who are single and what makes their lives so meaningful. Now let me butt in here. I used to think that single people were pitied while married people were celebrated, like she says, but not anymore. While church pastors were telling me from the pulpit that marriage was the most fulfilling and best thing for almost everyone, privately, them and me, I seem to hear a different message, that singleness was best and marriage is tough and you won't have as much sex as you think. After I got married, I discovered MGTOW videos that say marriage is for fools, so singleness must be for the wise. Now I find stoicism videos about the joys of being alone. Frankly, I don't see much stigmatization of singles these days. I shared such a portrayal in a, this is them talking now, as they get into their points. They say, I shared just such a portrayal in a plenary address I was invited to give at the meeting of the American Psychological Association, and they called it What No One Ever Told You About People Who Are Single. And this was what they said. Here are their highlights. Number 1, single people rule. There are more unmarried Americans 16 and older than there are married Americans. My thought, that's unfortunate. Most people desire to be married, but due to an inability to do what it takes to stay married, like unselfishness, patience, forgiveness, and other virtues, many marriages have ended. Number 2, they say single life is the better part of our adult lives. Americans spend more years of their adult life unmarried than married. Well, that is tragic. A couple at church I know are going to celebrate their 70th wedding anniversary very soon. That's more like it. Experiencing a good marriage is better than not experiencing one at all. In fact, when I die, my wife knows I prefer she gets remarried so she isn't alone. She is a lot younger than I am, and I have talked to her about how much time she might be single after I die if she doesn't remarry. Their third point, people who are single at heart, quote, embrace single life. Living single is how they live their best, most authentic, most meaningful lives. They are not single because they have issues. or because they have not found the one. I don't think there are many people like that personally. And single at heart, I'm not sure what that really means. There are some people who can literally embrace the single life, and those people have been given the spiritual gift of singleness by God to live unencumbered for the kingdom of God. And other people are a eunuch or are fully able to make themselves eunuchs for the kingdom of heaven. Do you know many people like that? Didn't think so. Singles can just declare themselves single at heart, or can't just declare themselves single at heart, because it is a rare gift from God to be able to live without sex and without the companionship that marriage provides. Those with the gift honestly do embrace being single, but not because they get to do what they want to do, but because they get to do what God calls them to do. Fourth point claims that getting married makes people happier, healthier, and more integrated into society, they say, are grossly exaggerated or just plain wrong. Now, I will include a link for you from a book written by two women called The Case for Marriage: Why People, or Why Married People Are Happier, Healthier, and Better Off Financially, in case you don't want to take my word for it. They list things like this about what's so great about marriage. They cite a better financial picture, longer life, better mental health, greater safety, better and more satisfying sex. I was single until 53 when I married a woman from the Philippines quickly, in less than 8 weeks. We've been married for over 6 years now, and I feel a sense of fulfillment and purpose that I didn't have before. I have not found sex to be overrated, and not all that, as some have said. It's like saying billionaires being overrated. I felt an enormous amount of pressure getting released when I got married. I have this channel called Love Beyond the Sea and podcasts on casting beyond the sea to help men give marriage a chance. A man has to take responsibility for the marriage he started by proposing to a woman and make sure to keep it healthy. It isn't easy, and no one said it was going to be. The fifth thing they mention is people who get married do not end up any happier than they were when they were single. Again, that doesn't include me. People who don't know the roles of the husband and the wife and who are not committed to that relationship, no matter what, are naturally going to want out of it at some point. You have to develop thick skin, and it helps to understand that neither of you are perfect, and because neither of you are perfect, you are going to offend each other, get on each other's nerves sometimes. Number 6, people who get married do not end up any healthier or less depressed than when they were single, nor do they enjoy any higher self-esteem. I must be an anomaly. Marriage requires a 100% investment. It needs to be tended to. It needs to be protected. What about those of us who are married and would dispute the notion that married people do not end up any healthier or less depressed than when they were single? And we do have higher self-esteem. Number 7, people who marry, they say, become more insular. They were more connected to parents and friends when they were single. Well, try being single when your friends get married or have a girlfriend. Goodbye to you sometimes. 8, when studies seem to show that getting married is beneficial, the explanation may be something called singleism and matrimania, as well as biased analysis, rather than any social support or social monitoring that goes on within a marriage. I still say marriage is better for most people, as I've said in many, many videos. Number 9, in some studies they say lifelong single people do better than everyone else, even when the analysis is based against them. For example, they say these studies include analysis of the overall health of more than 11,000 Canadians, of the cancer risk of more than 33,000 Italians, of several measures of health of more than 10,000 Australian women in their 70s and an American study of the health, well-being, and resilience of wounded warriors. I'll move on to number 10. Social scientists overwhelmingly study marriage and married people. Lifelong single people are mostly ignored, except as a comparison group in studies of marriage. I had 53 years to do my own analysis of being single. As someone not gifted to be single, I only wanted to be married. I understand that some can live without sexual temptation, and if so, marriage is not a necessity. The Bible calls marriage the grace of life in 1 Peter 3:7. That's good enough for me. It means it's the best. Eunuchs and those called to a life of selfless service to humanity can be single. Excuse me, I have a dry throat here. How many people like that have you met? Before I forget, I will link the playlist for cringeworthy things said to single Christian men, and there are many of them, I guess designed to make you feel better about being single. I'm probably not going to be one to do that, because if somebody felt great about being single, they would have no interest in marriage, and they certainly wouldn't like my channel. They probably wouldn't even be on social media and looking at videos, because they would find better things and higher things to do for their life. And number 11, they end here. When people are drawn to single life and when they thrive there, it is for positive and deeply significant reasons, such as, they say, singles savor their solitude and its profound rewards. I say, what profound rewards are there for those who need to be married if they remain single? I just think that would be more frustrating than anything else. They say singles embrace bigger, broader meanings of relationships and love. They care about the ones, not just the one. The Bible says to get married and raise a family. That is normal. Those children, in addition to the spouse, are the building blocks of society. They are to be invested day in and day out so they can make wise decisions in their lives. That is more important than having other friends and doing other things with other people. Being married necessitates focus on the family. Married people understand the meaning of relationships and love. And yes, they are seemingly tied down to this unit, but it's that important. Singles develop, they say, a diversified portfolio of skills. The kinds of tasks that newly divorced and newly widowed people need to learn are ones that lifelong single people have already mastered. I take a little exception to that. I'm not sure what skills those would be and why a formerly married person would need them, especially if they want to get married again. They say singles contribute in meaningful ways. They do a lot of volunteering, and they do more than their share of caring for aging parents and people who need help for 3 months or more, even when those people are not family members. Moving on to the probably next to last point, singles value opportunities to pursue their interests and passions and do the work they care about the most. They care more about meaningful work than married people do. It says they care more about meaningful work than married people do. I guess marriage isn't meaningful work. Lifelong single people develop a greater sense of autonomy over time than people who stay married. Well, all work in marriage is meaningful. Meeting each other's needs, raising a family in the chaotic moral climate of the day is unbeatable. Married people need to focus on what is needed for their family and might not have the time to be bothered by other pursuits. Married people need to care more about each other than they care about themselves and their own interests. And says here, lifelong single people experience more personal growth and development than people who stay married. What? How can that be? Personal growth is best developed in the service of others, which married people do for each other and their children. That's what the world needs. Selfishness has no place in marriage, and those that are will quickly find out that that's going to hurt them. I often get the impression that many people are single so that they can pursue their goals rather than what is best for a spouse and a family. I personally feel like I have grown and developed more since being married for 6 years, even though I had lived so much of my life before as a single person. If someone is self-centered, they will struggle being married. For so long, people desired to get married, but now people supposedly prefer to be single? That's quite the change. What happened? I think many singles assume they will end up divorced, so they don't bother to get married. I don't buy the doom and gloom rhetoric. I got married to a woman better than I expected. I am totally into her. For her good, I am also fulfilled in my role as a husband. Whatever benefits there might be, being single, I think are outweighed by constant sexual frustration and loneliness. And how in the world are you supposed to be fulfilled that way? I think marriage gives us purpose. Those who would choose to be alone, I think will live to regret it. Those who still realize marriage is needed, those who realize that marriage is better, need to do something different so they can get married. Somehow, they have to not give up. Women need to be pursued by a man. Men need to pursue women. People are still getting married and want to be married. Many of us think that marriage is a great thing despite the obvious interpersonal disagreements from time to time, especially those of us who have found love beyond the sea.